Welcome, one and all, to the Hammer Territory Podcast. My name is Shawn Coleman, once again here with you, as well as my podcast partner, Stephen Tolbert. Last night, it was, to be honest with you, it was a fun podcast, being able to recap a victory for the Braves, a 7-1 victory over the Brewers. We talked about a lot of good things, talked about really hoping that this could be the catalyst to help us have a good week, and here we are on Tuesday night, and we're right back to normal. Braves bats fall silent in a game that clearly they had the opportunity to win. But once again, same old, 4-1 loss to the Brewers. We're going to break down a bit of it, plus talk about, some bigger stories, some bigger, thoughts, in terms of, a little bit more long-term in terms of this season and even beyond. And we'll also look at tomorrow's matchup between Spencer Swellenbach and Chad Patrick of the Brewers. But Stephen, always good to get to do these with you, even when it's the same old, rinse, wash, repeat. Non-existent offense shows up once again.
Yeah, I mean, if you just want a snapshot of what the last year and a half, 2 years have been like, just watch these last two games. I mean, this is it. This is what we've done for the last 18 months is one game, offense looks great. Next game, offense is terrible. And, they had chances. Acuna started off 3 innings with a hit. And each time the 2, 3, and 4 hitters, went down in order every time. And, Grant Holmes pitched pretty well. I mean, Grant Holmes didn't pitch like great, but like Grant Holmes is your 4th starter and he gave up 3 earned runs in 5+ innings. I mean, again, it's not like ace level stuff, but I mean, he's not the reason you lost, certainly. I mean, the reason you lost, you can't score. And, we're going to talk about some of the individual guys, but like, I think their 2 through 6 hitters were 1 for 15 tonight. So, I mean, and then, the bottom half of the order is not exactly like the greatest in the world anyway. So like when your 2 through 6 go 1 for 15 and the 1 was a 2-out double for Matt Olson that ended up doing nothing. So, I mean, essentially no impact on the game from 2 through 6 in the order. That's the game.
Yeah, and it's not fun. Like, it's just, it's not fun. And that's what stands out to me, Stephen, about this is that, when we look at, some of the individual numbers, we look at it, we think to ourselves, okay, Chris Sale is back to pitching, and he's been pitching for the past 6 months like a Cy Young contender. Spencer Swellenbach is pitching well. We'll talk about him a little bit later on in the show. Our starting pitching overall has been doing pretty well. Last night, we were 6 hundredths of a point from Austin Riley being with our other top 5 guys, all of them having 800 OPSs. When you look at the whole picture, this team certainly seems to be better than their record is. But then it gets back to the same old story in that you could just never have all these guys on the same page for an extended period of time. It's not only, one day when our offense goes well, our bullpen struggles or our starting pitching struggles. But within the offense itself, Acuna has a great game setting the table, and then no one can do anything behind him. Just goes back to that same point in that individually, several of these guys are, not necessarily living up to what you expect from them, but as a whole, they just cannot get on the same page. And we're not going to get anywhere. We're not going to get close to anywhere that we want to be until that story changes.
Yeah, I mean, you can't win scoring 1 run. You really can't win scoring 2 runs. I mean, I don't know how many times we said this. The only way you're going to go on a run is if you're consistently scoring. You cannot play 1-run games, low-scoring games all the time and win 7 in a row, 8 in a row. You're not going to do it. You got to be able to score. You got to be able to beat teams 7-1 like they did last night. But you got to sustain it. Like that's the only way to go on a run. And the Braves starting pitching has been plenty good enough to go on a substantial run. But they can't score. And, Austin Riley looked just miserable tonight. First 3 at-bats was a strikeout, and a ground ball double play after 3 Acuna singles. Ozuna's in a big funk right now. I think he was 0 for 4 again tonight. I don't know. I don't know if he needs an off day. I don't know. I don't know if we need to try Baldwin and Murphy. I saw people mad that, Riley was in the 2-hole. I just can't bring myself to care about where these guys bat in the order. I know if you look at like career numbers, but like most of that stuff should just be random. Like it's not like Austin Riley's talent level changes because he's batting second in the order versus third in the order. Like I just can't imagine that matters. And I understand Drake Baldwin didn't play tonight, but Drake Baldwin was hitless last night, and Murphy had 2 hits tonight. Like I have a hard time. I had people blaming the fact that Baldwin didn't play as the reason they didn't win. I mean, Murphy wasn't the reason they lost tonight. Like a 2 through 6 went basically 0 impact from 2 through 6 in the order. Like, and they're not going to win. I mean, this is what we're going to get if they score 1 or 2 runs like this. Like you're just not going to win these games. When Chris Sale pitches, yeah, you can win probably a 1-0 game. When Spencer Swallenbach pitches, yeah, you can probably win a 2-1 game. But like when Grant Holmes, Bryce Elder pitch, like they're going to give up a couple of runs. You got to at least get 3 or 4 on the board when these guys pitch. And this offense can't even do that. And until that changes, nothing changes. I mean, it's not easy, but it is simple. Like until they score consistently, they're not winning consistently.
And here is how small of the margin is. Last year, Steven, I think it was you who was the source of bringing up the fact that 4 runs was just the ceiling for this offense. They could just not score more than 4 runs. And that once again is the case this year. But here's how significant a minor margin is. Since 2024 started, the Braves have scored 4 or fewer runs 132 times in games. They have a .318 winning percentage in those games. When the Braves score 5 or more runs, which they've done 95 times, they win 79% of their games.
Yep.
1 run is literally the difference between winning 30% of your games and 80% of your games. And for this offense to ask for them to average 5 runs would not be them being a top 3 offense in the league. It would be being then slightly above average. If this offense can ever get to averaging 5 runs a game, we could see the run that we need. But it is such a monumental ask for this offense to do it. And it is just so mind-numbing. But once again, I don't mean to be repetitive, but I just want to repeat. When we score 4 or less runs since the start of last year, we win 31% of our games. When we score 5 or more runs, we win 79% of them. Seems like a simple ask, but it just can't happen.
And for a team that was built on offense. And listen, they've changed the ball. The ball is different, 100%. They've probably been disproportionately screwed by that as much as any team in baseball because they were built on power. And if you look at, a big stat going around right now is what percentage of barreled baseballs leave the park, right? And every year in the last 4 years, the percentage of barreled balls that actually go for home runs is going down and down and down and down. So the ball is different. It is. But, the Yankees are still scoring. The Dodgers are still scoring. It's not an excuse. It's not good. These guys make a ton of money and they get paid to produce. And this crap where they're like, well, yeah, but we get hot in July. All right, but you can't take 3 months of the year off. That's, I don't know if the Braves have just assembled the streakiest bunch of hitters ever assembled in the history of the sport or what, but it's just not good enough. It's not good enough, plain and simple. And like you just said, until they score, until this changes, this is what we're going to get. Are we going to get a team that's 10 games under 500? No, probably not. They can probably fake it a little better than that, but you're not going to get a good team. You're not going to get a World Series caliber team until this team can score. And It's like the last 18 months have been like watching every single playoff game for the last 3 years. That's what the last 18 months have been like, where like the pitching does pretty well, the offense no shows. And again tonight, one run. It came off a Nick Allen double, which is hilarious, by the way, and a Ronald Acuna Jr. single. And both of those events happened with no one out. So the Braves had Acuna on first, Riley, Olsen, and Ozuna up for the third time in the game. Acuna on first with no one out, and Riley, Olsen, and Ozuna up. And not only did Acuna never score, Acuna never moved. He never got past first base. They never even moved him up a base. And listen, Acuna's not going to run. That's been made abundantly clear. They have told him not to run. Like, he has not attempted a stolen base. And so they're just telling him, listen, your bat is too important. We can't get you hurt on the bases. And I completely agree with that. That means Austin Riley, Matt Olson, and Marcell Ozuna need to do their damn job and drive him in. I mean, he's got like a 480 on base percentage since he's been back, and they can't score. That's crazy. I mean, he's been better than I ever could have hoped he could have been since he's come back, and they still can't score a damn run. It's infuriating.
Yeah, it's definitely, we can look at it from so many different perspectives. We can, bring up, different solutions, all this different stuff. It's the same message bottled up in a slightly different way each and every podcast. And, at the end of the day, it's just, it is very infuriating, and just, it's mind numbing. But, we talk about how it seems like such a simple ask that if this team could just score one more run per game, their fortune can make a 180 overnight. Well, that's exactly what they need to happen. But I want to put a bit more context into what needs to occur for this team, not only now, but for the rest of the season, for them to really be able to feel as if they have the shot at the playoffs. We'll discuss that in just a moment.
It's summertime, and if you want to let it all flow out, but the hair is thinning, there is a solution for you. And Kratz, it's called Nutrafol. Tell the people what they need to do.
It's easy. You just got to hit up Nutrafol.com and use our code FOUL. And I'll tell you why, because you're going to have thicker hair. That's it. If that's your desire, you want thicker hair, there's no other place to go than Nutrafol.com and use the code FOUL for us.
#1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement brand, trusted by over 1.5 million people. See thicker, stronger, faster growing hair with less shedding in just 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol. For a limited time, they're offering the FT fam $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com and you enter the promo code FOUL, FOUL. Find out why over 4,500 healthcare professionals and stylists recommend Nutrafol for healthier hair.
So, Stephen, as we record this podcast, the Braves, I believe, are 14 games behind the Mets in the East, and they were 9.5 games behind, the wild card lead. I think, somewhere around, 8.5 to 8 games out of a wild card spot currently. In other words, the stack is decked against them when it comes to the playoffs. And I'll be just completely honest, Stephen, I feel that this may be the case for you. I feel like it is more likely than not that the Braves are going to miss the playoffs this year. I just feel that that's the case. And here's the biggest reason why. When we talk about what the Braves need to do in order to be able to even start the conversation of the playoffs, be it a potential outcome for this season, it's they've got to improve, and they've got to improve quickly. And the people bring up, when they talk about the Braves, they bring up, the Mets from last year, or they bring up what the Braves did in 2022 when they came back and, from 10 games down in early June to win the division against the Mets. But there's one thing that's in common. I know the Mets were it last year. I think the Braves were 1 or 2. The thing that stands out is that, yes, the Braves being able to overcome their current deficit in the standings to make the playoffs, it would not be unprecedented. That's true. But the thing that people don't consistently mention is that the reason why the Mets were able to make such a big leap, they were able to come back from being so far back in early June, they were the best team in baseball from early June through the end of the season. I think that's an impossible ask for this Braves team. Because even if they score the 5 runs a game that we just mentioned they need to for the rest of the season, this year when they score 5 or more runs, they're still league average when it comes to winning percentage. They win 82% of their games when they score 5 or more runs, but that's still league average. The point that I'm getting at is that you can tell me, and I'll be the one to tell you as well, to think positive, to have hope. Yes, it could happen. But the big thing about it is that overnight, they've got to become the best team in baseball for them to have the best chance to it happen. And that just, again, seems to be an impossible ask.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at all the, the different sites that measure playoff odds and what percentage this team is likely to make the playoffs, the Braves are like 80-20 now to not make the playoffs. So, I mean, if you believe in those percentages, then, that's a 1 in 5, right? There's 1% out of 5 that the Braves will win to make the playoffs. There's 80% chance they won't. So, and that honestly even feels high to me. I might even go lower than that. I'm not even sure I'm not even sure I'd give it a 20% chance. I might give it a 10% chance, honestly. They've just dug themselves such a hole. And like you said, they have to play like 700, 800 baseball to get back in this thing. And they got to do that for like 3 months. They can't even do it for a week. They can't even do it for a series. I mean, we haven't seen them stack like really great offensive games together, like 3 in a row in like 2 years. I mean, forget doing it for a month or 2 months or 3 months or 4 months. They can't do it for a week. So no, there's no chance I'm going to say they're likely to make the playoffs. This team, as we sit here today, this team, in my mind, has about less than a 10% chance to make the playoffs. And I can't believe I'm saying that on June 10th. Never would have in my wildest dreams imagined that. But you got to face reality. I mean, we're not going to sugarcoat it. We try to be as honest as we can be on this podcast, and I do not expect the Braves to be in the playoffs. And I'm going to need to see a substantial amount of fantastic baseball before my opinion on that changes, because they're 10 games back in the wild card. I mean, forget the division. The division's over for the Braves. But like just a wild card, they're 10 games back. And like teams like the Brewers and the Giants, Arizona has the tiebreaker over the Braves because they won the season series. The Padres have the tiebreaker over the Braves because they won the season series. So whatever you see in that games back column in the wild card standings, it's actually 1 game worse for those against those specific teams because the Braves have already lost the head-to-head tiebreaker. So no, there's no chance I'm saying the Braves are more likely to make the playoffs than that. They're 10% might be too high for me. I might be in like closer to 5%. As we sit here today, the Braves are not making the playoffs.
Yeah, these sites, as well as the opinion of many, the best way that I could put it is that the Braves' playoff chances are not yet buried, but the eulogy's been written. It's been edited. It's been looked over. We're close to it being delivered.
We're very close. Like they're one more bad streak away from just being buried and the season being over.
They'll be buried. So if that's the case, then conversations are going to start shifting from the hope of what could be this year to what needs to happen to not be in this position moving forward. And one thing that is very clear, one thing that I've talked about, and I think it's supported our pitching, one thing that has improved this year is our defense has been very good. Matt Olson, Michael Harris II, Nick Allen have been among the best defenders in baseball. But unfortunately, our offense just is not good enough to have players at multiple positions who have so much of their value tied up in defense. And I'm specifically talking about center field as well as the shortstop position. I looked it up earlier tonight, Stephen, how the Braves, did at the shortstop position when it came to runners in scoring position. Last year, up through June 10th of the 2024 season, the Braves shortstop position with runners in scoring position, their WRC plus was a 1. With Orlando Arcia as the main shortstop. This year, with Nick Allen as the main shortstop, up to this point in the season, the WRC plus for the shortstops with runners in scoring position is a 24. Last year, we were 30th. This year, we're 28th. The point that I'm getting at is that if the playoffs are just not going to happen this year, then you've got to find ways to improve the overall offensive output from all your positions. You hope Jurickson Profar does that in left field for the future, but the shortstop position simply comes into focus. If there's going to be moves that are going to be made, one thing that is abundantly clear, you've got to find a shortstop. I know Nacho Alvarez is about to start a rehab assignment. I don't think he's the answer. Nick Allen clearly isn't the answer. You have been preaching that this should be a priority. It is now more clear than ever. That is one area where you can no longer sacrifice offensive output.
Yeah, I'll tell you the thing I never want to hear again, and we've heard it for the last 2 or 3 years, is that, well, this guy can bat ninth, and if the other 8 guys in the lineup are doing their job, then it's okay. There is now a very large sample size showing that counting on 8 guys in this lineup to all be doing their job at one time is not going to happen. The Braves have just assembled too streaky a collection of hitters to expect that you're going to have 8 of them going at once. At most, the Braves have like 2 or 3 guys going at once at any given time, which means you cannot just have automatic outs in your lineup anymore. And even if you're worse on defense, listen, the Braves are one of the best defensive teams in baseball, and they're 10 games under 500. Okay. So are you going to be worse on defense? Yes. Fine. We got to score. Got to score runs. And listen, with Michael Harris, it's tough. I don't know what you do because you're locked into him for 6 more years, 7 more years, whatever that contract is. And he's making real money now. I think he's making like $10 million a year. So like, you're kind of stuck there. I mean, honestly, you are. I mean, unless you're going to trade him, which I mean, you would be trading at an all-time low. But like left field and shortstop have been black holes for 2 years now. And I understand Jurickson Profar is going to come back and maybe he will be better. But until I see that with my own 2 eyes for a substantial amount of time, I'm not going to believe it. I'll tell you that. I do not trust Jurickson Profar to do anything until I see it. At shortstop, I just every time we talk about shortstop, that same thing comes up. We're like, well, if the other 8 guys are doing their job, you can have kind of an automatic out in the 9th spot. But that doesn't happen with this team. The other 8 guys are never collectively all doing their job at the same time. That doesn't happen. It's just too streaky hitters for that to happen. So Alex has got to get that mindset out of his brain. And we just can't have automatic outs anywhere in the lineup because everybody else is too streaky. We got to have guys at every spot in the lineup that at some point can produce, at some point can get hot and be an actual offensive plus for you and not just always a drag on the offense. I mean, it seems like the last 3 weeks, every single time the Braves have 2 runners on, Nick Allen is up. And the exact same thing happened last year with Orlando. It just seemed like every single game, Orlando was coming up in the biggest spot of the game. And we just can't, we got to get rid of that mindset because it's not working. And, they haven't had a shortstop since Dansby left. I know they got lucky, quite honestly, with what the year that Orlando had in 23. I mean, the Braves have basically been playing backups and bench players at shortstop for the last 3 years. They got lucky one year. The last 2 years have been a disaster. I know Nick Allen is a great defender, but the problem with this team is they can't score. So we got to find some guys who can play, who can hit and stick them in this lineup because there's just too many other guys in this lineup who don't hit an insane amount of the time. And so, yeah, 100% I agree with you. This mindset that you can have a couple of black holes in your lineup because everyone else is going to magically do their job, that's got to go away.
And the thing that I also want to hit on before we, get into tomorrow's game, the series finale with the Brewers, is that this isn't saying that the Braves should have spent the money that was required to re-sign Dansby Swanson. That's not what we're saying.
No.
What we're saying is we just need to find it to where we can bring in someone that we feel confident will not offer league worst production at shortstop. That's all we're looking at.
There's something in between giving Dansby Swanson $180 million and having guys who can't hit their weight.
Yeah.
Like there's a whole spectrum in between those two, and we got to be able to find someone in between there.
Yeah, a serviceable defender who also could potentially put somewhere between an 80 and 100 WRC plus at the plate, at least when runners are in scoring position. That's all we're asking. That's the whole thing about this offense is that, again, I know that I mentioned just a few minutes ago that this team will have to be towards the top of the league, even probably best in the league, to actually have a chance at the playoffs this year. But the way that you start that is just getting league average offensive production at the majority of your positions, or at least having the majority of players in your lineup do it as they're expected. But again, don't want to get into too much of a rant. But to your point that you so eloquently made is that no more can you sit here and sacrifice offensive production for good defense, because you just do not have that room for error when it comes to this lineup. We've talked so much about guys who need to get the job done. Thankfully, we're going to see someone on the mound tomorrow who has been getting the job done, and a bit more on just how special this season potentially could be for Spencer Swellenbach here in just a moment after another word from our partners.
I just want to say, before Arena Club, if you were trying to very actively buy, sell, trade, it was very complicated and used a lot of mail that was unnecessary.
Yeah, I didn't even know how to do it, but I'm glad we have Arena Club now because it's a one-stop shop for everything card related.
It is. And right now, you can get 20% off your first slab pack or your first card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/FOUL. Use code FOUL. If you're a collector, you've got to check out Arena Club. Go get after it.
So, Stephen, of course, we talked about yesterday how special Chris Sale looked on the mound. Something that I want to say, I mentioned it on Twitter earlier today, but saw a tweet where Chris Sale over his past 10 starts had I believe it was 68 innings pitched, 66, 68 innings pitched, something like that, 83 strikeouts and a 1.61 ERA. There's no Brave in the history of the franchise, as pitching rich as we've been over the past 50 years, there's no Brave who over a 10-game span have produced those numbers or better. And the only lefties over the age of 35 who have ever had a span like that, Steve Carlton, Randy Johnson, and Chris Sale. That's how not only special, but historic Chris Sale has been recently. So we know that Chris Sale is going to make the All-Star game. And as a matter of fact, I feel with it being in Atlanta, who's going to be the manager of last year's World Series, it's going to be Dave Roberts again, right? Or will it? Yeah, will it be Dave Roberts who's going to be the manager of the World Series? I think that, out of respect, he'll probably give the nod to Chris Sale if he continues to pitch well. But let's talk about another pitcher who I think could work his way into potentially being in the conversation for the National League All-Star team, and that's Spencer Swellenbach. I don't think he's there yet because he's going to have to put together another 2 or 3 weeks worth of good production, but I think he could work out to be an all-star pitcher. But beyond that, the reason why I'm glad to have this conversation, Spencer Swellenbach about 6 weeks ago looked like he was potentially going to have a sophomore slump. But over the past month, he's righted the ship and once again has shown himself to be a top frontline starter. Stephen, what are your thoughts? Think that there's an all-star chance with Spencer Swellenbach there? And just how excited are you to be able to see him on the mound in a big spot?
Yeah, it's always tough with pitchers because you always have guys who make the team who end up pitching like the Sunday before the All-Star game. And there always ends up being a ton of replacements on top of the normal, injury variance that happens with pitchers. So like Spencer probably hasn't fully had an all-star first half. He had such a rough stretch there at the beginning. He's been awesome lately. I mean, his last 2 or 3 starts have been just like last year. I mean, he's been awesome. And the strikeouts have really gone up, 10, 11 strikeouts. The stuff, he's throwing 100 miles an hour these days. But, all-star nods, it's going to be tough. It just depends on how many they take. I agree with you. Chris Sale is going to be in the team. I mean, the Braves have to have a representative. So even if they didn't, Chris Sale would be on the team. But there's a chance the Braves have one representative in the All-Star game that's in Atlanta, which is
let's make no mistake. That's what they deserve. As of right now, that's what they deserve. So
I mean, I would put Acuna on there just because it's more fun to have Acuna on the roster than not. But I understand if people are like, well, he's only played for 3 weeks, not even 3 weeks. He only played like 15 games. So I understand that. But yeah, I mean, it's very, very possible, if not likely, the Braves are going to have one representative in their home ballpark. And it should be Chris Sale. I'm guessing he will start the game. Schwellenbach's just going to come down to how many. I doubt he makes the first cut, like when they officially announce, but I could definitely see him being added as a replacement as guys drop because of injury or they pitched too late on Saturday or Sunday or not going to be available to actually pitch in the game. There's always a bunch of starters added late. So, that's probably his best chance. But if he goes out and dominates the next 3 or 4 outings, I mean, he could get his name up there. It's not too late. He's probably going to get, I don't know when the actual voting is, like when it ends, but starters don't get voted on anyways. Starters are just picked by the manager, aren't they? It's only the position players that get voted on.
Yeah, no, yes, that's correct. The pitchers, I believe, are picked by the staff. Yes,
they're just selected. Yeah, so he's got another 3 weeks, 4 weeks to. So yeah, he's got plenty of time. If he pitches like he has the last few outings, he's got a great chance to be on the All-Star team. But he's got to keep it up because he's already had kind of his low point of the season. If he has another one, that's going to kill his chances. So he's got to stack probably 5 or 6 more really good ones. And yeah, he could be on the team. That wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I think I owe a bit of an apology because tomorrow is going to be a pretty fun pitching matchup. It's actually going to be Spencer Schwellenbach of the Braves against someone who right now you could make a case is the front runner for the National League Rookie of the Year running, and that's Chad Patrick of the Brewers. You want to talk about someone that could be on the All-Star team? Patrick himself is putting together a bit of a, pretty reasonable all-star resume. So yesterday I made it seem like, Spencer Schwellenbach overwhelmingly was going to be, the best pitcher on the mound. Chad Patrick is pretty good himself. So the Braves are going to have the work come out for him. And I'm never just not going to not be able to do this. A good week is still on the plate. We lost tonight. It sucks. We lost, and I know, and I don't mean to be annoying, but you get the job done tomorrow. You got it. You're coming off a series win. You got an off day, and then you've got the Rockies. So a good week is definitely still there. But again, I try. It's just I try. It's just as I say it, as I get through that 30-second spiel of trying to be positive, I have the energy for the first 5 to 10 seconds, and then it's just like, yeah,
you're so pure-hearted. You're just a positive guy. You can't help it. And
and it's a glutton for punishment. It's
I wish I would love to be like that. I would love to be able to just look on the bright side of this, but even if they win them, I mean, I'm kind of in the same spot I was last week when we talked. Like, even if they win tomorrow, I'm going to assume they're going to.
Tonight shows this team just absolutely.
They'll figure out a way to wet the bed over the weekend.
Yeah. They cannot gain momentum and hang on to it. They
can't stack 2 like good games in a row.
Absolutely.
Like, forget stacking like a month or 2 months. They can't do it for a series. No. So like, it's just tough. I mean, for me, it's just tough to.
Yeah.
It's tough.
But hey, like I say, we mention it every show, and we're going to keep mentioning it until the times get better to where we can have multiple shows in a row like we did last night. We're going to be here to cover it, win or lose. Offense is on, offense is off. Sale's making history, Schwellenbach's making history. You see zebras flying. If you were in Middle Tennessee earlier this week, you did see exactly that. Regardless of all that, can't thank you enough for joining us here on the Hammer Territory Podcast. My name's Shawn Coleman. You can find me at StatsSAC on X/Twitter. Stephen Tolbert at B_Outliers. One of the best when it comes to covering the Braves. Brad Rowland and Scott Coleman will be making his triumphant return tomorrow night, with Brad Rowland covering the series with the Brewers and looking ahead to the series against the Rockies. Hammer Territory across all forms of social media, part of the Foul Territory family of podcasts. Until next time, go Braves. We'll talk to you again soon here on the Hammer Territory Podcast.